Welcome, everyone. This is the webcast, our second webcast in the CTC, or CADRE Technical Conference 2015 rebroadcast. The session today is not a Datacom specific session, but a CA mainframe application tuner session that was well received at the conference here in Plano. What we have seen is that there's a significant interest from the Datacom client base in a tool that will provide the kind of application viewing, if you will, that the CA MAT product provides us. It gives us a great capability to be able to go out and look at some of our legacy applications written in COBOL and IDEAL and see how those applications are actually using the database, and in some cases helps us to analyze those programs and do tuning efforts in order to fix some problems that, always happens with legacy programs. They worked great 5 years ago, but as data changes and new structures come into play, the programs get slower or have performance issues. So this is a great tool. We have one of the leading experts on the product, Yvette Santana, will be presenting for us. And what we want to do today is to have Yvette go through a PowerPoint presentation that kind of leads you through the product, shows you the value of the product, how to use it, how it works. And then as time permits, we'll actually open up for a little bit of a live demo. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Yvette.
Hello and good morning, everyone. As Kevin mentioned, my name is Yvette Santana. I've been with CA for several years, and I've actually been supporting the mainframe application tuner for the last 8 years. I started with the TriTune version of the product, which CA acquired back in 2010, and they've actually evolved the product over the last few years. We just actually released a new release of the product back in December, version 10. With that release, we actually introduced a web-based graphical interface. So I'll talk a little bit about that during the presentation. But let's go ahead and start. I like to usually start with a PowerPoint presentation. It allows me to level set everyone, make sure that we're all on the same page on what this product does and what its intent is. And if there are any questions. And okay, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, here we go. I'm obviously hitting the wrong buttons here, so forgive me, good folks. So as Kevin mentioned, mainframe application tuner, I'll call it MAT just because it's a mouthful to say all of those, all of that in one sentence. CA MAT delivers functionality to support the Datacom and IDEAL environments. We've actually supported this for some time. However, over the last few years, we've enhanced it a bit, so you might find, you'll see that there's additional value for you in utilizing this type of product for your applications. So what is Mainframe Application Tuner? Mainframe Application Tuner is a tool that allows you to improve the performance of your application. It's different from some of the system type monitors that are available out there, like OmegaMon and Sis View, etc. Because it's more targeted to the application. System monitoring tools tend to observe the environment and tell you how the resources are being utilized in the environment. However, MAT or CA MAT, it's coming in from the application's perspective and showing you how your application is utilizing its resources. And this is helpful to us in identifying where in our application code we are experiencing either long wait times or excessive CPU utilization in the application. And we get right down into the line of code in terms of identifying where in your application the issue is. The way that MAT works is that we take advantage of disable interrupt exits and global SRBs. What this means to you is that it's non-evasive. Other sampling type tools, which this is what MAT is, tend to be intrusive. They tend to be in the same address space as your application, so they're obviously using resources that your application would need in order to complete. So we're able to externally observe the application and see where it's spending time and bring in the content that's relevant to that specific application. It's generally less than 2% overhead associated with it. What that means is, you know, there's always a cost to doing these types of analysis or these types of measurements against your application, and you want to minimize that. Well, with the sampling technology, that's exactly what we're doing, is we're minimizing the overhead associated with measuring or monitoring your application to figure out where the performance problems are. And with MAT, we found that generally it's less than 2%. As I mentioned, we utilize sampling technology, and I think I have a slide further down that describes sampling. Sampling is essentially that. It's not on 100% of the time. It's an on and off, which is why you can reduce the overhead. But we also leverage intercept technology, and what that means is that we're actually gathering runtime statistics for some of the components in your application. And the ones that we specifically collect additional runtime statistics for are DB2, IMS, CICS, and MQ series. These components in your applications, not only are we going to show how frequently we observed those components during the sampling process, how often we observe those components or those resources, but we're also going to enrich that data with real runtime stats. So, for example, in DB2, you're going to actually see real CPU numbers and fetches and things of that nature. In kicks, you're going to see, you know, the number of times the transaction executed, et cetera. One of the nice things about MAT as well is that it's an interactive analysis tool. What that means is it's not batch-oriented. It can be if you want batch reports, but we utilize the Ispf interface so that you can interactively go through the data the way you need to go through the data. But as I mentioned, in version 10, we introduced in version 9, we actually introduced a graphical user interface. In version 9, it was just Eclipse-based, and it was a FET client, so you had to install a component on your desktop in order to utilize that functionality. But in version 10, we introduced a web-based component. So now you have 3 ways that you can access the graphical interface. You can leverage Eclipse plugins, which we support. You can install the FAT client, or you can just use a URL to access the data. And I'll have some slides that I can show you. So here's how the sampling architecture works. Generally, MAT takes snapshots. So about every 10 milliseconds, we are going to observe the application, see if the application is running or waiting, and then we collect information about, you know, what PSW it's executing in, or what resources it's waiting on. And then at the end of the measurement period, we put all those snapshots together to paint the picture of where your application is spending time. Is it spending time in application code, or is it waiting constantly for resources? And we'll tell you what resources those are. So in that sense, once we paint that picture, we're able to tell you where exactly your problems are. Are they related to data? You know, the application code is constantly waiting on some I/O activity. Is it, you know, in contention with something, or is it just looping in code? And we bring you right down to that component. We also provide automation in a couple of different ways. CA MAT has a component called Performance Management Assistant, or PMA. that comes with the product. You automatically get it so you can leverage it. It's an automation tool that allows you to leverage SMF data. And we build historical repository about those, or historical information about each of the applications within your production environment, and can identify trends. So it can identify when applications are deviating from normal behavior, and it will automatically initiate MAP measurements on your behalf. So by the time you get notified that there's a problem, you will more than likely have a MAP measurement waiting for you that you can then take a look at and see where the problems are with that particular application. We also leverage CA Sis View. CA Sis View, you can automate the process. If you have capture event, you can set specific thresholds for different components, and one of the actions can be to initiate a MAP measurement. You can also issue a line command in Sis View, so you can go into any of the task screens in Sis View, and if you detect that there's a problem transaction or a problem application, prior to killing that transaction or terminating that activity, I recommend that you initiate the MAP measurement. And it's basically an MAT command that you would issue in Sis View, and this would then invoke a MAP measurement for that application that you targeted in Sis View. And of course, because of the Sis View integration, this allows you to have cross-enterprise application monitoring available. If the problem ends up being in the mainframe from a distributed application, you can initiate the MAP measurement via the capture event component. And then we also provide integration with the CA's application quality testing tools via the PROT-SIM files. So if you are already an application quality and testing tools user, and you have compile listings, obviously, in some of those PROT-SIM files, we can automate the correlation of those, automate the correlation of those program listings with the MAT report, so that you're not looking at offsets, you're looking at actual statements within MAT. We have that integration built in. When you go into the report, rather than seeing offsets, you'll see the actual source code. As you can see, we support many configurations and languages. We support COBOL, PL1, Assembler, Java, Rex, etc. I mean, these all come with the tool, so you automatically get support for all of those pieces. As well as we support many different environments such as IMS, DB2, CICS. If you're running WebSphere on ZOS, we support that, and obviously MQ series. So if your applications are utilizing any of these components, we will discover them, and we will report on how they contribute to your application's performance. Here's a sample of the MAT and Sis View integration. As I mentioned earlier, you can see that I can be in any of the activity or task level type screens in Sis View, and it's just a matter of entering the MAT command, and that will in return invoke a MAP measurement, and then I'll be able to get the details as to what was the problem with this specific application. I strongly recommend to my customers that, those that use Sis View, when they are using it to triage a performance problem, that they initiate a MAP measurement before terminating the activity, so that you have that detail. Here's a sample of a Datacom statement panel. As I mentioned, MAT, you just basically point MAT to the application, and then we will discover any of the components. As you see here, this was a batch Datacom application, and we can see that it had Datacom utilizing version 12. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to tell us. what your application consists of, Matt will discover it. Here's an example of the Datacom statements as it relates to this specific application. I'll show you in a quick demo. You know, we have the report. The report will break it down into the different components that the application comprises of, and one of them would be the Datacom. If we discovered Datacom, then we would have a section that would display the Datacom statements in relation to your application. And you can see that you can focus in on the ones that are have the highest numbers of utilization. As far as ideal source, we're able to, as I mentioned, bring you right down to the source level. So here we're pinpointing. And any of these columns can be sorted. So if you were interested in targeting the highest consuming instructions, you can always sort this in descending or ascending order so that you can target those instructions first. Here's a sample. I know this is kind of a busy screen, but I was trying to highlight, the graphical interface. You can see that this is a URL-based. We also provide Eclipse-based as well. But essentially, it's just a started task. We access the data that's already on your mainframe for the CA MAT report, so you don't have to ship them across anywhere or ship them to a server or anything. It's all mainframe-based. So I can access my profile and do my analysis using the graphical interface. And as I show you here, there's obviously a program that seems to be high consuming. I can get down to the instruction level, but then I can also see the listing and see that instruction in context to the rest of the code. And that will help me identify what the actual problem is. And you can do this all through the graphical interface. So you can see that there's the facilities of having a graphical interface is all available there. You can drag and drop screens, and you can do comparisons of reports. Really a nice functionality that's been introduced here. So in summary, Mainframe Application Tuner is an application tool that is going to help you identify performance issues where no matter what components your application is using, because we support multiple languages and database platforms, including Datacom and IDEAL. And so you'll be able to leverage this tool to improve the performance of those applications as well as any other applications that you might have in your environment. You just need one tool for all of your applications. And with that, we end this presentation. Do we want to open up for questions and answers at this time?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Just so everyone knows, if you have any questions, please either put them in the chat box below our names, or you can ask them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the WebEx screen as well. And so far, Yvette, I'm not seeing anything, so maybe you just want to.
Well, I did have one question. A couple questions came into me while we were chatting, so I'll go ahead and ask these for the clients, Yvette. You had shown that there was a Release 12 program you were monitoring. Is there anything the clients need to do if the Datacom version changes with MAT?
No, they don't. They do not. We will, if there's a release out and a new release of Datacom comes out, then we will provide you with maintenance to support that new release.
Okay. So currently, and I believe we've tested with 12 and 14, which are the two current field releases, so that should be fine. But the client wanted just to know if there was anything that they needed to be aware of there. The second question that I've gotten, is there any way, as we're looking at this information, to save it off So you can see how a program ran today, make a database change, and then see it again, so that you could actually compare results.
Oh, yes, yes, for sure. One of the nice things is that once you create a profile, and actually this is a good transition into the demonstration as well. One of the nice things about MAT is that once you create a profile, it's a reusable profile, so you can execute it over and over again. And actually, the graphical interface works great with that because in the graphical interface, if you do have, a MAT measurement that you ran, previously, and then now you've made some changes and improve the execution of that application, and you get a new profile for that application, and the graphical interface allows you to quickly and easy compare the two right on the same panels. So you'll be able to do that. And then there's also different ways that you can save that historical data. You can maintain the data sets that the MAT measurement tool creates and then compare them that way. Or we also give you a CSV facility, so you can drop down the data into a CSV format, and then we provide a Excel add-in that you can add to your Excel, and then you can save that data in that context too, and that could help with historical data as well. So there's many different ways that you can do that in terms of retaining historical information so that you can do comparisons moving forward.
Okay, and then the third question I had from a customer was, and I'm not sure, I think he talked about this a little bit, but they have IDMS and Datacom and DB2 applications as well as VCM applications. Is there one MAT tool that deals with all the apps, or is there specific different tools you have within MAT to get to all, to the different databases and or file structures?
Nope, great question. Nope, you need just one MAT, and even if you have an application that utilizes all those components, you would just run it against that one application. We would discover all the different components that you're utilizing. So it's just one tool for all those components. We support that entire environment.
Okay, well those are the three questions. Those are the three questions that came in to me while I was monitoring here, so I just wanted to bring them up. Any other questions, Glenn?
Yeah, I see a question from Steve Roy or Steve Waugh, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Are there complexities with Datacom, metacobol coding? This is almost all of our applications.
I'm not sure what the question was again.
I think I'll try to answer that for you, Yvette. Metacobol is a COBOL preprocessor that Matt wouldn't know about. It takes a high-level command, like I could say something like, for every data view, read this Datacom table and go do something. Datacom or Metacobol actually changes that into a series of commands that you would see in MAT, like a select first command, a CBS command, or one of the read key commands. So the complexities of Metacobol will be exposed in MAT in that MAT would see the commands that COBOL is issuing, but it would not see the commands that you've entered in Metacobol. That's sort of a high-level thing. So it would work fine from my position or point of view, and this is Kevin. I don't see Metacobol as introducing any specific difference, if you will, to the way MAT would work, because MAT would just see the basic call that was being issued, the Datacom call.
The PSW, correct.
Right. Well, the difference is that the COBOL programmer may see in his program, in the COBOL source program, the Metacobol source program, a data view, but MAT would actually see the true Datacom command being issued, such as a select first from Datacom table.
Gotcha.
If that helps the client. So it's not going to actually be able to relate that. And that's where one of the complexities would come in on this, is that there would be, when MAT would be, and I think you have a capability of reading in the COBOL source code, so you can dates the COBOL source code to the actual MAT reading, correct, Yvette?
That's correct. Correct.
So
well, we do the COBOL listing, right, the compile listing, I should say.
Right. So the COBOL compile listing that the client would actually feed in is not the meta-COBOL compile, but the actual COBOL compile. Now, the good part about that is even though Matt would be reporting the select first statement that was generated under the covers from the meta-COBOL for each statement, because you have the entire COBOL listing there, you could actually see the comments above that where the for statement is commented out and the select first statement is generated. So there is a capability with Matt to be able to allow you as a programmer to correlate the call you're seeing in the Matt program to the actual meta-COBOL statement you see in the high-level COBOL that you've written. Hopefully that will help.
Okay.
Okay, and then I guess the other comment I'll make on this, because there's a lot of concern in the organization today about meta-COBOL. I've made this statement on a couple of the community sites. CA Datacom will be taking over the long-term support for meta-COBOL. So clients using meta-COBOL against CA Datacom, even though they're stopping the generic support of meta-COBOL, we will be taking up support of that. So meta-COBOL will continue to be supported as a tool to use against Datacom databases. So Yvette, we'll probably need to go out and see if there's anything we can do to spiffy up the meta-COBOL to COBOL to MAT thing. We can take that offline though.
Yes, this is actually the perfect time because we're starting to look at V11. So any customers who want to participate in enhancements as well, we're encouraging you to let us know so that you can be involved in the process. You have a say in what we introduced into our products because of the agile development process. So great. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick high-level demo. I want to just show you a couple things. I want to show about the creation of a profile that you would use to target an application. We offer two ways to do this. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to show, one, how simple it is to set up, and two, how you don't really have to tell us much of anything, and we will target the application and observe all of the components that your application uses. And then we'll dive into a couple of the quick reports. But there's two ways that you can target an application for measurement with MAT. One is what we call the queued request. A queued request is that you're planning on testing an application, and you want to, when you run this application, you want to create a performance profile for it so that you can get a sense for how this application is executing. And so what you would do is you would create the monitor definition, you would invoke it, and then you would submit your job, and Matt would, the two would come together. Matt would observe your application, and we'll create the report about what your application was doing. The second way is what we call an ad hoc. The job is already in flight, and you want to target it for measurement. So we give you that flexibility to do it either of those two ways. So let me just show you real quick what it takes to create, if I can just find my cursor, a MAT profile, a queued request. It's basically just to add, and it can be any, and I have to keep using these numbers because I think I have already a bunch of test profiles out there. It can be any user-defined 8-character name for the profile name. You can see here that I have some that I've defined with the same name as the job. It helps me to know what it is. And basically all you have to do is provide us with a job name. That's it. That's all we need. This profile is now ready to go. I can just exit, invoke it, and I'm good to go. However, if you've got a multi-step job, obviously we're going to target the first one. So you either have to provide us with a specific step that you're interested in. It could be a proc step, and it could be whatever program is in the program exec statement. If you're not sure and you want to target all of them, it's as simple as saying, hey, just measure all of the steps in my job, and we will apply the duration and observations to each one. We create a separate report for each one, so that you're not getting, convoluted data in one report. You're getting separate reports for each step. You can do analysis against each one. It's as simple as that. You PF3, you invoke it, you submit your job called job name, and Matt will then go out and observe that application. Now, I don't have a job called job name, so I'll clean this up later. But I just wanted to show you how simple it is. You notice I didn't have to go in and tell it has DB2, it has Datacom, it has COBOL or Ideal. I just target it and Matt will discover it. Ad-Hoc is even simpler. Obviously, you go into option 2, which is active jobs. As you can see here, I'm in a Sysplex. I will see every job that's running currently in my Sysplex. And I can target any of the ones that I'm interested in. As you can see here, there's a bunch that begin with that. You notice I'm using those fields for filtering. And then I can just invoke it from here. That causes the invocation of the monitor. I have ways of going in and observing these. As you can see, that first one is running. I can stop them. And stopping is not a destructive stop. The data that I collect up to that point is still can be used for analysis. However, that was my user ID, so I'm not going to show you those because it's probably not anything interesting in there. So let me show you a couple of Datacom samples. So I do have a ton of here. Let's go into an ideal one. So I just want to show you a couple of things here. This is the Ispf interface with Matt, as you can see when I go into a report. And you notice that I'm not actually entering a lot of commands here. I'm actually just putting my line command, my cursor on the line command and hitting enter. This is one of the other nice things about the Ispf interface with Matt, is we have what we call auto navigation. You're not sure what command to enter, just place the cursor on the line command and we will logically progress through the report based on where you're starting off. So from here, it's going to enter us into the analysis, and we go into a normal analysis. If I go into 0, just to give you a high-level understanding of what, this is about the monitor itself. The job, we give you information about the job. Obviously, this is a CICS region. We tell you what we discovered. In this case, it was CICS 6.5, Unix System Services, which you always see in a CICS environment, and then Ideal version 2. Now, this is an old monitor, but we do support the most current releases now. We also give you job statistics and information about the monitor itself. And I just want to point out further down here, Matt provides you with a bunch of messages. Remember how I said in my presentation how Matt is generally less than 2% overhead? Additional cost to your application to measure it. Well, we are very transparent. We provide a message in Matt that tells you exactly what it costs you to run this measurement against your application, both in storage and in CPU utilization. As you can see here, this is very, very low number. So the overhead is very low in utilizing this against your application. Sorry. My scanner came on. So I just wanted to show that we are definitely transparent. When you're dealing with a CICS environment, the first place I like to go to is in the transaction view. Transaction view shows me all the transactions that were invoked during that phase. One of the other things that Matt does offer during the monitor definition is that you can actually either target the entire region. So if you just point Matt to a CICS environment, we will collect information about all the transactions that are executing at the time of the observations. But you also have the ability to filter only the transactions you're interested in. We give you an additional CICS area where you can supply up to 4 transactions that you want to monitor specifically, and wildcards are acceptable. So if you've got a high-level qualifier for a specific series of transactions, like in this case, I could have just done SC, splat, and I would have gotten any transaction beginning with CSC, however many there are. And so I can, focus in on just the transactions that I'm interested. I also mentioned during my presentation that we provide you with additional runtime statistics. So we enrich the sampling data, which is these percentages here, right? These are the number of percentages associated with this specific transaction. We also provide you with real runtime statistics. So you'll get the real hard numbers that will help support the sampling data. And in terms of your analysis. Now I can navigate from here. As you can see, this is ideal, but we'll go over from here and continue drilling down to get additional information. But I just wanted to show you the ideal, in which case I want to just go right into option 17. And here we'll show you, how your application or the specific transaction is utilizing the ideal component. We show you the high level, and then you can drill down and get the what we call histogram, and so you get the additional granularity, the details, right? So here you're getting the actual statement number and then how the samples correlate to that. So you can get right down to the area that you need to focus in on. And you can do this real quickly. As you can see, I can drill down into these areas fairly quickly and get to the information I need in order to improve the performance of some of these applications. So that's the ideal piece. Let's show you some data comm. And you notice that I'm using these fields to help me, get more detailed. I'll go figure. Sorry about that. I thought I had already migrated that. We'll go in here, and you can see this is Datacom 12. I thought I had some newer ones, but I can't seem to find them. Oops. Forgive me. My navigation skills today have gone out the window. I'm just going to go in here. We've actually done some enhancements here. This one is not showing it, but we actually improved this. The PTF is still is being published as we speak. So we've changed actually the way that this looks. I think I showed it in the PowerPoint the way that it will look. It has I think it was table key. Kevin, you might recall how we formatted the screen. So the format of the screen is much improved with the latest enhancement. I just haven't applied it to this environment.
The screen is a little bit changed, and it's actually Matt has a dynamic screen capability. So the PTF is relatively small in order to do this, but what's being reported here is actually as table ID is actually database ID, and that's been corrected. Underneath table key, we still have that field, which is the key that's being used, but what's missing is the 3-byte table, and that's been added. So on the newer display, the updated display with the PTF, you will see DBID of 1. Table would be, in this case, probably PAY, and then table key, which will be the ST-zip. So we've actually updated this screen because there was some confusion in the request area when Matt was pulling it in as to which fields belong to what value. So we've got that all straightened out. There is a PTF for the current releases of Matt that you apply, and this screen gets changed. Now the nice part of all that was when we worked with the development group, John Quinn and the other developers on this, this is sort of a metadata thing, and since our entire request area is displayed or available to the Matt display, anything else that's in the request area that we suddenly decide we think is a good thing to put out there, it's PTFable. It's not a major architectural design because the screen is free form. So we have capabilities with working with users to make this more descriptive depending on what the user wants to see. I mean, it would be for the whole user community, obviously, but.
Right, right. Was there a question?
Well, there was the question is whether that should be call, where you say call, whether it's a call or whether that's really command. In a datacom concept, that word call is the actual datacom command, but since we are looking at this as a generic source where you call datacom, you call DB2, you call VSAM, I'm okay with that being called call. I think most of our datacom folks would understand that the call to DB entry issuing the get it command is what that's translated to.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you some of the content, but I'd like to show some also, because I'm sure some of us are not just datacom. We have some other components in our environment, such as DB2, and some other components. And I can show you, oh, Jesus, everything like decided to migrate from last week. My apologies. I thought I had all of these all on migrate at some point. But you know what? Here we go. So you can see how there's some really neat information in MAT and how we can show you all of that. So when you go into MAT, as I mentioned, we will obviously always discover all the pieces and any other components that we support and we discover in your application, we're going to list right here. We don't just generically list all the components. We only list the components that have been discovered in your application, and then we list the release level. But if you're dealing with DB2, I wanted to show you how we also show the sampling as well as the intercept data. So you're going to get runtime statistics. Let me show you one of these high numbers, actually. We're going to support the sampling data by showing you the actual statistics associated with executing, the SQL statement like this. So we're going to give you the call count, how many times did we observe it executing during that measurement period, what was the call, the total CPU utilization, the per call, how efficient is your DB2 area? Are you getting a lot of the data from the pools? Are you having to do a lot of swap outs? And we provide a lot of detail about the SQL. And then we actually provide you with the SQL as well. And if you have explain turned on, we'll provide explain, but I think sometimes it's even nicer to have the help. So we will interpret the explain data and then provide you with help on that, on what we've discovered. So, there's a lot to MAT. And as it was asked earlier, do you have to buy the different components? No, this is all, you get all of this with MAT, and you get the automation component as well. So if you were interested in being proactive about, applications that are having issues in your environment, you can set up the PMA to automate that whole process as well. So with that, are there any questions related to what I just showed?
I think there was an additional question that came in, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with this, but I'll throw it at you. Basically, a lot of our clients are concerned about trying to construct or build RMF or SMF data out of the datacom environment. And, because datacom itself, that does not cut or generate SMF and RMF records. You get the total address space records, but you don't get the actual task-by-task records. So the question come in from Phil Frankfurt, one of our users, is can MAT data be correlated to RMF or SMF data? Is there a way that the data that you're collecting for a given program or entity be correlated to an SMF kind of record?
Well, the batch side of the world would be pretty much. I'm trying to understand if this is two questions, because I did mention the PMA piece, which has an SMF component that it leverages to identify or to learn execution patterns in applications. That's the component that utilizes SMF. So we basically just use SMF for that component to understand the execution patterns of applications, and we build that history on those. But that's the only reason why we use the SMF. We then use measurement data to understand how it's using resources, because the same issue is applicable in the DB2 land. I mean, yeah, DB2 itself cuts SMF, but when it comes to PMA, we're not leveraging the DB2 SMF data to correlate that with the SMF data for the type 30s, which is what we're essentially after in PMA. We actually leverage the measurement data to enrich the repository in PMA. Now, when it comes to MAT itself, this facility, we don't use SMF data at all. We're not cutting in, we're not hooking into the SMF in order to retrieve this information. We're actually observing the applications using DI and global SRBs. We target the TCB that's running in the address space, and that's where we're then gathering the information for each of the components. I hope I answered that clearly enough for the person. But we don't leverage SMF in the MAT side of the product.
Yeah, I would think because you're using sampling to generate the measurements that it wouldn't be a true, you know that this program is using this resource and that's the main thing it's using, but you don't know how much total resource it actually consumed because you only get samples.
Correct, for the most part. Correct? Right, for the most part. We do, in some cases, we do leverage intercept technology, which is slightly different, to gather additional data on some components, but we don't do that for all components like Datacom. We're leveraging just sampling data. The same with IDEO. The areas that we do leverage the intercept technology is in DB2, KICS, IDMS, et cetera. And those pieces we're usually hooking into some of the same areas that some of the monitoring tools hook, and we gather the same type of data that they do, or a subset of that data. But for the most part, we're not leveraging SMF in MAT observations.
And I will bring out, that we do have several clients that currently are using MAT against Datacom, but we are looking for a larger base to start looking at MAT and Datacom so that they can make recommendations, or customers can make recommendations to us on how they see MAT and Datacom working better together in the future so that we can do additional development. I think it's a really great entry into the marketplace, and it has value today for every Datacom site, but I think that we could probably do a better job always going forward. I do have one other question that popped in here, and basically I think it circles back. So we know that there's one MAT product that works with all these other tools. Does MAT have any requisite CA products that you need to have for MAT to work? I mean, you mentioned APM, but I think that's as a side thing. Is there anything that the client would need to have in addition for MAT to work?
As a prereq, nothing. No. MAT
services?
Is delivered. No, we don't. If you already, I mean, we provide you with the piece for not even common services. It's for the ProtSim piece. If you decide to leverage that, we provide you with that, but you don't have to use that. That's only to support the ProtSim automated facility for correlating listings. But if you're already a testing tools, like if you're already using Intertest and I think SimDump, the two tools that use ProtSim, then you would be able to leverage what you already have. But there's no prereqs for MAT. It's a standalone. You don't need any other CA products like common services.
And then for many of our clients, you know that Datacom is used internally at CA. We have a large Datacom and Ideal application portfolio, and we're actually implementing MAT with our GIS group to look at this legacy portfolio we have ourselves. So this is something that CA is working on to actually use internally also.
Right.
I think that's all the questions we had that came in through the website. And unless there's anyone else out there that has any other questions, I guess we'll turn it back. We'll wait a few seconds and see if there's any other questions. Is that any other final summarization? We want to thank you very much for working with us on this. Yvette had one of the most attended sessions, basically full to capacity type sessions. So we're very happy that we were able to include Yvette in our CADRE Technical Conference 2015, and to have her come back and redo the session for us here. So we haven't seen.
The only thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was going to say that one of the other things you mentioned earlier about the development stuff. One of the things that we have been looking at and talking about is, providing DB2 type data, the runtime statistics for Datacom. We're beginning, as I mentioned earlier, the development cycle of version 11. We're going to start validating some of the enhancements. We're also still looking for ideas on what customers want, but we need customer participation. So, we have out on CA support there, I think you can access some of that information out on the communities for CA MAT if you're interested in participating. Even if you're not currently a MAT user, we still want to hear from you and see if maybe you can provide us with some feedback on what would add value in that area for MAT.
Well, I think it's all great, and we really appreciate it. We haven't had any other questions come in, Yvette. I will just leave out to the community that, you can reach out to Yvette Santana on our ca.com, just through the normal email. You can reach out to me, Kevin Shuna. I'll be glad to answer any questions, as well as to go to the community. If you want to post information or questions out on the community, there are several Datacom sites that are currently using MAT, or a few sites that are currently proof of concept accepting it. They may want to respond to you and give you, their internal feelings for it. If you post questions on the community, we monitor the community here, so we'll be glad to make sure that Yvette sees the question and that we can get an answer out to you. So if we didn't get a chance to answer your